about how do we lead the product-centric organization. So we'll start with a quick conversation. I know it's brief and I do want to honor the time and keep it that way, but let me just do 2 minutes real quick and throw you all in there. In fact, do we have enough for a breakout? Yes, we do. Let's do a quick breakout. I'm going to put the link in here to everyone. It's in the calendar invite, but let me put it again right here in chat for us. But really what I want to do is start the conversation is, why should leadership want something, a product-centric organization? You may or may not know exactly what that means. I still feel like I'm wrestling with what does that mean exactly? So I've also bulleted out what does that look like. You can go below and scan, but we're going to review the rest of the content. Talk about essentially like, where do you think you're at in these areas? What might that be to next steps for you to take some action, and give us a chance also to kind of do breakouts and really make it actionable as well. That's my intention with the leadership group. If you weren't leaders, then you could just sit back and listen and not take action, but leaders take action. So we're going to do some of that. So let me set up Bob, you raised your hand.
Did you say the link is in chat?
It's going to be,
okay.
Now, it was in your update. It was the second link.
Yeah.
In the meeting invite.
It's in the meeting invite now. Wasn't that clever? And I just put it in chat as well. So now you can go to chat and pop it over there. I'll do it again. A couple of folks have just joined. Colleen, how nice to see you.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
If I get a note that says
Awesome.
if I get a note that says I've been deactivated from the workspace, should I just go have breakfast?
Did I not? Let me make sure it's the right one. I thought this was the right one.
Did you send a visitor link?
Does that look the same? It looks the same. So if you had an account before, maybe, and we did a little cleanup at the end of the year. We had like a whole bunch of accounts that were member accounts that we had to deactivate.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, Scott, Elliot, I'm kind of in that same boat. Like I was expecting to be able to go back to our CAL murals and couldn't. So I don't know whether that's a thing or what I might do to fix that or help with that.
Yep. There was an email sent out that said, hey, you might have had access this way, but go back to the initial registration information from Jessica or Ashley, if you're pre-Jessica, and you'll see links saying, here's the links on the mural boards. Those will be the visitor links.
Oh, cool. Okay, thanks. I've been out of the loop the last couple of weeks, so let me go back and check that. Thanks.
I've been out of the loop for like a year or two, so you're doing good.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to pop over.
You can see Shanda's actually still a licensed user.
Someone slipped through the cracks. Okay, so let's do a quick breakout. I do want some conversation. Part of what I'm hoping as I look at what I want from going forward in the new year is a chance for you all to connect more. I think there's so much learning that happens in the class, but there's all these other groups that you didn't get a chance to meet those people and connect with. So we'll do a short breakout. The focus of the breakout, once you go, is simply to say, why should my leadership, my organization, why should they care about this thing? What's in it for them, you could say. And we're going to come back to that a little bit later, but kind of get the juices flowing and get a chance to meet each other. If you haven't already met, just take a minute or two, say, this is me, my org, my role, why I care or show up, etc. And give you just a few minutes for that, but also make those post-its on there. I'd love to know what's on your mind. Part of this is just requirements. Like, I think I know what they want. So this is a validations as well. So if you have other input of what you'd like from the session, you can put it there as well. We're going to give just a few minutes. I'm automatically going to close this after 1 hour. Let's see, 5 minutes should be enough. I'm going to open up the rooms now, and there we go. Yeah. All right. See you in the rooms. Welcome back. All right. So is that everybody? If that wasn't already worth your time, then
We got a lot done.
I got nice intros. I think that is really valuable. Next time maybe we'll adjust the time. By the way, what you're experiencing right now is an experiment we're running based on feedback we've had from people in the classes saying we'd like to not only just get a chance to get together, but it'd be nice if we knew what we're showing up for each time. and there's always questions left over from the class. So in case you didn't know, every month now, the first Friday of every month is a topical meeting. It's only 30 minutes. That may or may not be enough. But we're also trying to give you an option of, look, an hour is a tight squeeze for me, given everything on your plate. Maybe half an hour works better. Give us feedback on that. And there's also should be a link in the invite that you have on the mural board where you vote on the topics you'd like to hear about or add more. So really this is, you're driving it, and we'll put something together and put that in front, and at least a little bit of content and a little bit of conversation and connection. That's the goal. So let's take a look at the feedback. As a heads up, this is some of the conversation, like what does it exactly mean? We're going to talk about what does it mean to be product centric? How do you go about doing that? And then some time for action items, discussion amongst yourself. I want to give some time for that in the end. What are we going to do? And I did reference some case studies and resources down below, but there's plenty. There's no shortage of that. But at least that gives you something all on one board to come back to. Let's take a look at what you have. Product-centric can create silos and lead to multiple applications for the same thing. Absolutely. Project-centric tends to be internally focused versus product-centric being more customer focused. I agree. I like that. Products are why we're here and what makes you money. Yep, that's why I'm interested in it. Proven delivery advantages with product focus. True. They're definitely success stories. Downstream impacts when using multiple applications for the same thing. Yeah, all the coordination and work. It's complex stuff we do, and we kind of make it worse on ourselves. Such a mindset can focus on one product solution at a time. This may be limiting to overall goals, vision of the organization. I'm just curious, Colleen, was that yours?
I put that in there. I'm not sure if I understand the idea of the concept of product-centric organization. I was thinking it's one product, one solution, work on it, single-minded. So my definition of product-centric organization might be different than yours.
Sure. Well, that's what I'm struggling with a bit. Because I know I missed Colleen's comment, but I heard about Colleen's comment. So I'll come back maybe after we're done as a balance, Colleen. I'll ask you to kind of weigh in on it because I think you are further along than many groups out there. I'll put you on the spot at the end if that's all right. So let's talk about holistically, what does that mean? The interesting thing is that we say we're doing digital transformation, but really the CEOs aren't really seeing that or thinking so. So I think you see pressure to go do this thing, whatever that thing is, like hurry up, everyone look busy, hurry up, everyone look product centric, but no one's really on the same page of what does that even mean. So here's what it means in a nutshell. And I kind of compared and contrast, and I'm trying to do this without laughing because Bob and I were just going through some, top big 5, whatever consulting company coming in and with one of our customers like product centric. And we're literally walking through their whole big fancy slide deck. Like, this is nothing new. That's my takeaway. So what does it mean? The interesting thing you might see at the top, number one, if you're not a software company, take your product or service and treat it like a software company. So some of the case studies at the bottom are Caterpillar or Bosch. They probably be known for tractors and tools, but how do you productize that? Is there an Internet of Things around that? Can you make a platform in some way and sell that and reuse it? So you're trying to look for the software applicability for your product or service. So that could be a big shift if you're a traditional manufacturing a product or service org. And we have had a lot, lately, a number of requests from companies who are professional services orgs saying, how do we go agile? We're not a software company. Well, this is what they would look at. If you're already a software company or that's vital to your business, make everything about the user and buyer. And we'll get into what does that mean. I think that's easy to say and harder to do. Number two, if it's a new line of business, take a startup view of funding. So if we are going to do this thing, treat it like a startup that we're going to not make money for a while. The average is 3 to 5 years. Is business aware of that? Secondly, if you're already in that spot in your software company, we look at doing the business goals more directly to the product lines. How do we make money on these products? And we'll get into what does that look like to do that, but we're really trying to drive it directly to that. Ellie, I'll come back after I go through everything, if that's all right.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. I just want to say I recognize your hand going up. And then last, this is me why I care about product owner. Number 3, product management is the core of everything we're doing, and it's the driver of growth and scale. That's how we will get there. But I think if you look at your organization internally, I don't commonly see that we're very robust in our product management. That looks like a clear strategy, a roadmap, portfolio management that's active, prioritization across the silos. And I mean prioritization outside of loudest voice wins, right? So getting better about that. So the steps to do that, he's like, yeah, that's something we would want to be about. I've kind of consolidated a couple of views that I felt like this to me seemed holistic. Number one, connect the business goals to the product. Now you might have to start with saying, I don't even know what the business goals in the org. Great excuse as leader to go and ask them, hey, I'm trying to, help me help you. What are the current business goals? What are the OKRs? Oh, you don't know what an OKR is? Let's walk through that, right? There's lots of ways we can help them get clarity on actually having goals, because those clear goals allow you to say no to the 90% of other stuff that isn't really the most important, perhaps, right? So tie the business goals to the product itself. You should be able to do that with the tooling. Be customer centric, and that looks like things like customer journeys, user buyer segments, validation, being data driven. How do we know? So my point is, what we don't want to prioritize is based on people's opinions, right? Their opinions, although interesting, are irrelevant. If they don't have data to back it, we don't do it, right? We don't do HIPPO, highest paid person's opinion, that kind of stuff. So this is becoming data centric. Number three, product centric strategy. So product centric looks like strategy and portfolio management, agile planning, marketing, communication. But again, have we seen anything new from any of this so far on this list? Not in my opinion. Flow, number four. Again, this is a little bit old school. We can't do a good job of making sure we're making money off the product if we can't even track how long it takes requests to get done. How are we wasting money? How are we spending money? Where are all these requests in coordination with others? Are we fracturing all of our people across too many things? So that's just kind of going back to our roots. Number five, agile teams. You might be familiar with that, but in the end, what they're saying, and this is just the press, this isn't some Scrum person out there. The press is saying they should be cross-functional teams that are kind of multi-skilled and can move around and are fungible, right? And then last, feedback loops. We're very familiar with retrospectives, but really want feedback loops from the customer, from the data, who downloaded that, who visited the site, who clicked yes and signed up for more information, any of that kind of stuff. So we did some things, we do a feedback loop to see how that went. So those are the basic steps of that. But when I went, going back through this again, I'll say, I don't necessarily see anything new in there. I felt like, as I reviewed this, I don't know, it feels like the fifth time I've gone back through this, it's someone saying, I tell someone something like, yeah, but we're not going to listen to you. We're going to listen to this consultant. He's saying the exact same thing, except with a French accent. It sounds different, but it ain't no different, right? None of this is like necessarily different. So I feel like it gets a little bit packaged. So that's a very fast glance. There's more details in the links below, but I'll pause there for a moment and say, any comments or questions about either what does it mean to be product centric, or how do you do it? How do you get there?
Well, I think, Scott Elliott here, I have a comment or maybe a question hiding in a comment. If we were to scroll back up to the 1, 2, 3 bit that you have there, if not a software company, take your product or treat it like a software. Well, company, maybe not, right? My personal takeaway to think about around that would be this notion of platform that you invoked. Right now, software people have a very particular idea of what a quote platform is, and I'll turn my camera on. What a platform is, and I think platforminess can be abstracted without necessarily asking non-software people to think of it as software, right? In the same way that potentially going digital does not mean going agile, right?
Right.
So if you haven't got the philosophy of empiricism, right, like fully baked in, then you can't be agile regardless of what sort of model you try to put on top of that. So my question is, do we really mean to language it like that? Because I can think of some people who are pretty anti-empirical, right? Who think they're doing agile, but the reason they're not is because they philosophically haven't made that mindset shift, right? And if we don't sort of call that out and intentionally do something about that, then we're going to almost be done before we start. We might as well just like walk away and be like, okay, thanks for the fish, right? So
right. I think that the words matter. I think our leadership in this area matters. And I think that's this next point is to have a quick conversation, because if they're assuming there's nothing new, so there's two parts of it I see is one, do we feel like we're comfortable talking about something? Because I'd hate to be in a meeting with some senior leadership and I'm not 100% sure as they're talking about this, so I'm going to hold back, right? My confidence isn't there. That balance of accommodative versus assertive, I'm not going to be assertive. And I know the folks above me, we've scored this so many times. How much do they understand agility versus what they say they understand about agility? This is not going to go in the direction we would like it to go. So one, your confidence, you say, this is that thing. Now, whether we call it that versus not, right? What's the difference between, Canadian French and French or that? Look, that I would worry less about semantics and more about us being effective as leaders to come in and speak to it. So I think, good enough's good enough. And then your comfort level is, I know the steps to get there, because in the end, leadership wants to know, they're not the executors of this. They're going to trust someone. Do you have a plan? Underneath that, I agree with you. Like, we're just going to inspect and adapt and iterate. But I know when I go through and say things like, well, let's figure out what it means to be product centric. That is not a confidence builder with leadership. So here's our plan. Right. I simplify it. I make sure they're tracking with me, because they can't follow when they don't understand. So I got to simplify it enough for them to understand, even if we can get into the semantics of it. And now we can get moving. Once we get moving and build some confidence and get some momentum, then I'm going to feel a little bit better about that. That's my 2 cents on that. But that's partly why I put this comment in, is for all of us, what opportunities do you have for influence and leadership? That's why I say, follow me, I'm right behind you. What might be preventing action in the org would be a good question to kind of pause and reflect, like, why aren't they moving forward? Why haven't they? Right? This has been out there for a number of years now. Why hasn't it taken hold? If it's a popular trend, so to speak, in the business space, then why haven't they done anything? What pains or gains do you have alignment on that you could use this as a lever to say, I think I have an antidote that might help with that pain or help us get that gain. But before we do that break, I did want to check in, 1 with Colleen and 2 for anyone else on feedback, but then we'll end with a quick breakout to see other action items for you that you might want to take in a breakout conversation. But Colleen, I missed your comment in the breakout. Maybe you had some feedback on what you've seen from your experience there at Pack Life.
Oh, well, first of all, we're definitely not ahead. We iterate through pain and pleasure, just like every other organization. So, however, there's one interesting facet, which is we are not a technology company, we're an insurance company, and hence our products are products that people use, financial products, right? And so we've been avoiding the term product because you're going to confuse an actuary. We're not doing the product. The product is these different fixed annuities and variable annuities. So as a result, we've taken sort of this product mindset to a very customer-centric view. And that includes, personas of the people we serve, and really starting there with that human element. And that's been tremendously helpful, because that gives people something tangible about who they serve, why they're doing the work they're doing. And, the rest of the technical expertise that is required to create a annuity product, as well as the software to support it, happens within the teams. But I think that North Star vision needs to really, like you had it up there, that it was a customer-centric view. It's more than centric. It's really telling their story and getting that story propagated through the rest of the organization.
Yep. And I like, and so my take on is, I agree. One, we don't want to confuse, and 2, what is real product versus idea product. I would lean towards not worrying about product centric and being customer centric. But for whatever reason, this idea of product centric is taken off. But I've always been about, Agile doesn't see it any different. Agile's never been about projects. So if we're doing Agile, there's a product owner. We're following that. So I feel like it's already kind of baked in. Can we do more cross, silo work? Yeah, for sure. But that's more of a scaling issue. I don't know if that's necessarily. We're still going to have someone rolling up at the top who says, "I'm the voice of the customer. Let's talk about what they need and hear about."
Well, I would also say the way in which it has shaped and emerged in our organization is quite different, because the Agile coaches don't even really get involved. They get involved in execution. But some of that vision is honestly with the business folks who have the empathy interviews, design the personas, then do design thinking, small iterations of the actual product before it even hits any kind of software platform. So yes, we're aware of that full life cycle, but there was a real kind of political tug to say who owns what. I'm like, I don't care. As long as the customer is getting what they need, let's go with that, and let's not get territorial about should an Agile coach be involved. They can be if we need them to. But I think honestly, the important thing is, who are we serving? Why are we doing it? And let's share this, share this role. But the design thinking teams really aren't. They are experts in design thinking, and pretty much that's the way it is in our company. It doesn't mean it's like that in every company.
Yep. And I think for some of these classic areas, you mentioned personas, journey maps, design thinking holistically. I just feel like there's a lot of growth opportunities. So maybe as we move into that last, the quick breakout, it could be like, where are we at in terms of product management, being customer centric? There's lots of tools and ideas out there to dig into. That for most part, I feel like it's kind of left behind that are great. And you're mentioning some of those, Colleen. So I'm also looking at the clock. Brian Akers already had to hop off. If you have to hop off, glad you came and hope to see you again. But we will do one last breakout because I'm interested in saying, in the end, as a leader, I don't want to be just information. What might you do next? I'll let you and the breakouts kind of have that conversation. What's applicable? That there's some ideas or things to look forward. You know, you might say, okay, going forward, I think I'd look into this. Thanks, Colleen. Appreciate it. And let's see what you come up with, and we'll drop in. So we'll do one last breakout. And of course, if you have any feedback for us, let us know. We're listening about how to serve you better. We'll keep the rooms the same, although they're a little bit smaller, people to drop. So one last breakout, and we'll see you in the rooms. Creating music. Welcome back. Boy, this feels like short and sweet. I just want to check real quick. Rodney just joined us, but hopefully you get a chance to meet him later. A couple of takeaways just real quick from my standpoint. We're trying to add value for all of you. Rodney mentioned, like, I just got the invite. Yeah, because I just had added that link, so you might have just gotten noticed. We'll do a better job of saying, hey, next Friday or whenever, to help stay in front of you. And also, you may or may not even have your work email as a notification. That would help. If we're using your personal one from the class registration, you may not know there's a session until weeks later when you check your personal mail. Also, again, reminder to vote on the topics in the mural board. That link is in the calendar invite. And is this time, is 30 minutes adequate? Would you like a little bit more? To meet and greet a bit, or action items, or whatever that is. So again, give us feedback. We'd love to adjust we're trying to be customer centric here. Can I just hear from a couple people popcorn style thoughts or takeaways? Like what does this mean for you going back into your org? What might be applicable or of interest for you personally?
Well, Elliot here, I'll go. If I could sort of finish my, maybe somebody could mute themselves, but by the way, okay, awesome, thanks. If I could just sort of finish my comment, connecting Bob and Nikki from our breakout there. They're definitely the product-centric dimension of Nikki, your situation would seem to be, at least incrementally, could we include that database specific group more in the product-oriented flow, right, by degrees, right? Like as Bob mentioned, and what was resonating, there's like an organizational perspective there that could usefully be undertaken. But again, that's not something that's workable at the team level, but maybe bottom-up style, which opportunities we're supposed to be looking out for as Agile practitioners, right? Maybe bottom-up style, we could lobby for a little bit more influence in that connection, so you don't get surprised by things coming down the path at you.
Yep. Other thoughts or action items you might take away? What might you do? And you might have already been thinking about things as well. That's what I was picking up for our group. It's kind of like, I already had some ideas. Yeah, we're definitely going to have a conversation, I think, and to see where they're at with that. I think that's good.
Yeah, sorry. I would like to have this kind of conversation with all leads in organizations, because we have some teams that have different projects that they follow as a product-centric information, but there are others that the know belongs and doesn't have the value for the customers on the business when they are building the projects. So also it's to have that kind of communication between the customers to know where we are working with the agile process. This is one of the in the manifesto that we try to achieve, and something related to the planning part. When we have that kind of communications and we build the users, personas, and other things before we start, so the developers will know the value in those projects that currently doesn't belong or doesn't know the value for the customers and the business.
One interesting thing I didn't touch on that was new to me and I absolutely loved is taking this idea of tying the business goals to products. But the next step in that would say, okay, so what's in our backlog that's currently a request? What ideas do we have, like based on talking to the customer, just innovation groups, like lots of ways you can do that, pulling those things in there, planning out a roadmap to say roughly, after talking to engineering, roughly it looks like this over these quarters, but what's the revenue generated quarter by quarter? If we could pull those numbers out and say, I think this will save us this much money, or I think it'll net us this much, revenue. That's how we're tracking. That's a language that they speak already. So when they come in and interrupt us, they'll see they're actually kicking dollars out of the box when they interrupt us, versus like, well, I'm just pushing out a feature. What's the, right? They don't see that there's a cost to that. So I love the idea of saying, take your backlog, essentially monetize the value you could get. That might be some footwork with you and your product group, but then roadmap it to roll that up in the way that they could probably engage with, more effectively with you. And that was a new idea to me that I thought was really interesting. Yes.
So there's a discussion that I've seen that works well, both with the teams and the technical groups and the leadership, which is, and it's right around what you just said, Scott, about waste, which is to ask the development teams, if anybody who's working on a development team, and it doesn't have to be software development, but anybody, have you ever done work that got thrown out because it wasn't what your leadership expected? Or even worse, at the end of the day, it wasn't what the customer expected. And how did you feel? And most of us who did that development work, whether it was plans or actually software, feel pretty crappy about that. And then you look at the leadership and say, how did you like paying for that stuff that got thrown out? Right. And that's kind of a common bond. And the idea then is, on the outcome point, how do we throw out less? And then I think we start circling the things we've been talking about today.
Yeah, I like that. Things like cost of delay, cost of lost opportunity. I think if we could take a little bit of time to quantify that, then the way you'd approach it with them is much more effective. I think as leaders, we're kind of called to be effective. It might be some footwork, but those kind of questions you're asking, how did that feel? How did you like paying for that? Oh, how much was it? We quantify that. We just threw away $75,000 worth of effort, right? I would ask, they probably don't even have any idea how much they're just throwing away or shredding in other ways. That's really great. Really, really like that, Ben. Anything else before we hop off? Oh, Ellie, I see your hand up.
Yeah, super quick. Can't help myself. Just because Nikki invested me in her situation. I love the conversation that's going on here about monetizing the backlog, as it were. Now that's going to be somewhat indirect and difficult to do in Nikki land. So Nikki, sorry for taking a bit of a liberty there. But the very fact that we can't do that might be the premise for sort of promoting what Bob was getting at, which is maybe we can make some organizational adjustments potentially in order to make that possible. So if we adopt the premise that backlogs should be monetizable, maybe that can be a motivator. Just 2 cents. I'm loving the conversation.
Yep.
That's a good point. The fact that you can't answer a question is invaluable information.
Yes. Yeah. And I think sometimes as coaches, we ask questions that are forcing that dissonance of like, I don't have an, yeah. Okay. So that's probably good that we follow up on that and see, but they help them recognize they don't have answers to those things.
Yeah. If our job is to be a forcing function, then we should do so in a way that actually forces without threatening, if that makes sense.
Speaking of forcing functions, I'll end with this. One of the other ideas we're throwing out there, because it's been something we've done in the past. Again, trying to find ways to help you find and take your next step, is doing what we used to call coaching circles. So if you're interested in essentially scrumming your efforts at work, right? Your own personal things. Here's what I'm trying to advance. Here's what I'm doing on my own roadmap, trying to move these things, make these things happen. Would it help to be in a small cohort of like 5 or so that meets every 2 weeks? But I'm telling you straight up, essentially you get held accountable. You get held accountable to what are your priorities? What are you trying to get done in those next 2 weeks? And at the end, circling back with that same group of peers and saying, yeah, I didn't end up having that conversation. I got too busy, right? Whatever those things are that you need to do, because we're talking about taking action. It's not easy. I think those groups help you to get clarity on what you're trying to do and be accountable to follow up on that. So if that sounds of interest to you, let us know. My preference, my thought is probably better that it's facilitated, right? Have a coach there, right? Not just for that group, because you also might like the one-on-one, like every other week, just one-on-one where they're saying, here's what I'm observing. What's your take on that? So if those kind of options look interesting, I think the cost would be relatively light, because if there's a group of you, it becomes essentially having a fractional coach. And I think that that's a nice, easy entry to help you really progress and take some action. Like I said, we've done this before. I just love being a part of them. I've been a member of them, and I've been a guide for them as well. So if they're interested in that, when I look at this, I look at 2023, it's like the year, like, let's really make some things happen. Lots of times in the classes we commiserate, but how do we move out of that and take some action? So ping us if you're interested. We'll send out some more information. My guess is they'll probably be structured and ready to kick off in beginning of Q2. As much as we could probably put that together, but finding groups and times that work for people is what we're thinking of. Anything else before I let you all get back to your Friday? Yeah, I'm glad you guys have to meet each other. That's a nice plus, isn't it?
This
Okay.
is, I'm so happy you continue to do these, Scott. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm so glad everyone shows up. Every time I'm coming, like, no one's gonna come. I see the face, like, this is so
Yeah,
great.
and I've been gone for the last few. I moved and a bunch of things happened. So I was so happy I could join today. This was a great conversation.
Oh,
But this is like the gym, though, right? We made a resolution. We're going to be better at it.
There you go.
And in January, everybody shows up.
Yeah.
I call those resolutionaries.
There you go.
Resolution.
They also crowd the trails for hiking and running and biking. Oh, the resolutionaries are out.
Yeah. All the treadmills and ellipticals are taken.
We'll see everyone at the same time in 2 weeks. Will be just the open forum, our lean coffees, and then again, first Friday of February, we'll pick a different topic. We'll take it up from there. Great to see everyone.
Awesome.
Enjoy your weekend.
Nice meeting
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
all. Great
Bye-bye.
to see you. See you.